This man is trying to change the world, so here's Nathan Ballantyne.
My name is Nathan Ballantyne. Folks know me simply as Man in Overalls. Last Sunday night, I spot Charlotte, our 3-year-old neighbor. Outside our kitchen window, she's headed through the gate to our backyard farm. When she gets to the mint, she drops down, looks back over her shoulder to make sure nobody's watching, and then she snags a piece. Next, she wanders deeper into the farm where she pops a few cherry tomatoes. Then she turns, she drops down, she grabs something, and then on a dime, she bolts back to find my son, Malcolm, who's on the saucer swing. They lay back together, and that's when she reveals the bell pepper in her hand, which they then share back and forth. I know your kids probably won't eat vegetables either. My grandfather was buried in overalls. His children placed seed packets in his breast pocket before they planted him. Emphysema earned like his calluses from a one-mule plow. I remember my mother dropping tears on his cold face. She tells me, he never wore a suit. Overalls, every day of his life. Growing up, my mother changed schools with the seasons. Though they had land, they traveled as migrant farm workers because the cotton, corn, and peanuts didn't cover the mortgage. My mother raised me on stories of wearing cotton sack dresses in Graceville, Florida, picking strawberries in Michigan, and sectionizing grapefruit down in Bartow. We grew up poor, she'd say, but I never went hungry, not a day in my life, because of that garden, that farm. When I was 8, my mother helped me start a garden in the front yard. That first year, I grew this bug-infested lettuce and these short little stubby carrots. I planted in the wrong season, but it didn't matter. I fell in love with the magic of growing groceries. The next year, I decided that I only wanted to grow things that I like to eat. So I planted watermelon and sweet corn. The next year, I was going to do the same thing, but my mother, she says, Nathan, why don't you grow some collard greens? Well, because I don't like collard greens. Well, if you grew them, Nathan, then you would like them. No, I wouldn't. Well, then, Nathan, would you at least grow a row for me? Mothers. So I planted the collard greens. I watered. I picked the little worms off of them. When they got big, I harvested them, and then I helped my mother chop them up and throw them in the pot. When she served dinner that night, she dished up collard greens on everybody's plate except mine. And I said, hey, Mom, you forgot to give me any collard greens. Oh, but Nathan, she smiled. You don't like collard greens, remember? So I ate my words that night. I graduated from college in 2008, the last time the banks were failing. And I didn't know how to fix the economy, but I did know how to grow food. And I thought, if things get really crazy, we're gonna need a lot more people that know how to grow groceries. So I decided to hang out my sign. I knew how to garden, so I had a product. I was good with numbers, so I could keep my books, but what was my marketing strategy? While I was, scratching my head, I remember sitting in this long line of traffic, and there was this homeless guy there with a sign. I I did some quick math and I realized that this guy with his sign was reaching 7,000 cars a day. I could do that. What if I made a sign that said, "Will garden for food"? But, how can I make the overall image better, And then it hit me, granddaddy, pitchfork, American Gothic, overalls, of course. But how will people identify me, when they return home or get to the office? Did you see that man in overalls beside the road? Yeah, that's it. I made a bunch of big signs. One that said, "Grow your own food and share it." Another with Rosie the Riveter on it said, "We can grow food." Another, "Honk for food gardens." So I staked out the busiest corners in town and, honk, honk, the story caught on. I worked with families and churches and neighborhoods, the city community gardening program. I built a demo garden at the Department of Ag, and I co-founded Tallahassee Food Network with a few community elders to foster an emergent food movement across lines of division. It was fun times. And along the way, I met this group of young people that confided they wanted to start a farm. So in the summer of 2012, I'm driving around in the truck with a couple of teenagers, and we're gathering supplies to build our first garden beds. And I'm trying to tease out, what we should actually be growing at this farm. And so I asked Alexis and Tira, I say, "So, what kind of vegetables do y'all eat?" And they confer with each other, and then they say, "No, we don't really eat vegetables." Okay. So this is where we're starting. We chat a little bit more, and I learned that for them, greens and vegetables are actually in separate categories. Oh, greens? Yeah, I eat greens. My grandmother, she's got the best recipe. I could eat them all day. So we start cooking with the young folks, and we learn really quickly the importance of culturally relevant food. The first week, we make greens, which were a hit. The next week, we make pesto, and all the kids agree, that's just nasty. So we came up with a new system. The young folks would decide what's on the menu, and then we would figure out how to make it healthy. So fast forward, we'd make it healthy. The other piece that you gotta understand is that on Thursdays, we would go grocery shopping, and we'd get a few baseline ingredients. And then on Friday, a few young folks would combine those ingredients with as many vegetables as possible, to stretch the dollars. So fast forward a year. One Monday, the kids take off before we're able to decide on the recipe. So when they get back on Friday, they say, "Hey, what are we gonna cook today?" I say, I don't think we can cook today. We didn't go grocery shopping, so there's nothing to cook. And they look at me like I'm stupid. And they say, "Well, we could at least make a salad." Yeah, I guess so. So a couple of young folks take the lead, and they're harvesting it all. They've got multiple types of lettuce, chopped kale, arugula, shredded carrots, green onions. They even make their signature homemade ranch dressing with fresh dill. At the end of the workday, everybody files through this line, and they fill a bowl full with salad. And nobody says a word. Look, you gotta understand, these were teenagers. They're hormonal, right? Nobody says a word for 5 whole minutes because they're gorging on salad. The first break of the silence was this young man named DeLon who pops up and he says, "That's some good salad. I gotta get me some more." In 2014, I married a redheaded Jacksonville native, Mary Elizabeth Grant-Dooley, who she grew up at Fans and Stoves over at 5 Points. So after a potluck wedding in a warehouse near Gulf Fair, we took off for 16 months to roam the Western world. So following, we spent a summer in Montana working and then took a road trip around the West. some language learning south of the border. The next year, we flew to Europe, and we spent 3 weeks in the south of France eating wonderfully rich foods. Bread, cheese, dried sausage, plenty of wine made down the street. It was delicious. And what's more, I felt terrific. I lost weight. I was regular. And then we went next door to Switzerland, and I ate exactly the same thing, and I felt terrible. I was in the bathroom for days, and I thought, wait, what just happened? Come to find out that agricultural laws in Switzerland and the US are very similar because they embrace this idea of minimal agricultural regulation in the interest of free trade. And one thing they're both doing is using Roundup or glyphosate as a harvest aid on things like wheat and oats and sugarcane. When a crop is done growing, but before it's fully dried out, they'll spray it to accelerate desiccation, and that way they can harvest 3 or 4 weeks earlier. So that means that there's less risk of a late season rain or hail damage. So there's a logic there, but it means they're spraying a chemical chelator on all our food that's binding up the nutrition, killing off our intestinal bacteria, which is arguably implicated in a $200 billion public health lawsuit. If you're counting, that's 4x the big tobacco settlement. Have you ever wondered why everybody suddenly got allergic to wheat? Yes. Or why Monsanto, sold itself off to Bayer, an overseas company? Anyway, back home in the Atlanta airport, surrounded by our fellow Americans for the first time in months, we're struck by how many people are huffing and puffing, walking down the corridor from the plane. Red and blotchy, swollen, big. I see people my age that are struggling down a few steps to the customs floor, arthritic. And that's when it hits me that we are frogs in this pot of boiling water. This is not normal. Our cancer rates, diabetes, our heart disease, our IBS, our allergies, our size, it's not normal. We are lab rats in a food experiment gone wrong. Amen. We need a transformation of the American food system. A problem this big and multifaceted demands a million simple solutions. So come back with me to last Sunday night. After Charlotte's clandestine farm foray, I walk out on our back porch and I notice my wife talking to her buddy Hillary from down the street. It's Sunday afternoon grocery shopping time, so she's there gathering some kale and spinach. As I wander out to say hey, Rob and Robin show up to pick some collard greens. That's when I notice Kathy and her grown daughter and her grandbaby gathering a salad for dinner. Lorian stops by on a call to pick some callaloo. Everybody's just picking what they need, saying hey, trading recipes, and heading on their way. Nobody's, asking permission or checking out. It's this little kingdom of heaven moment. But here's the crazy thing. Come spend a day with us on the farm in Springfield, and you'll learn that there's nothing all that special about last Sunday night. It's like this every day. See, our neighbor members, they pay a monthly fee like Netflix, and in exchange, they can come uPick whatever they want, whenever they please. We call it our unlimited urban uPick. 15 years ago, back before our coworkers and I began building this team of farmers in overalls to grow and support others to grow groceries, I remember this dorm room conversation where we dreamed, what if we can make healthy food easier to get than junk food? I'm cautious to say it, but I think think we found a way to do just that. So now we're asking a new question, which is where you come in. See, we're at a fork in the road. We can maintain this tiny little taste of heaven we've cultivated, or we can gather the seeds of wisdom we've learned and scatter them at scale. We're dreaming about a network of neighborhood farms spanning the Deep South.
Yes.
But I'll be honest, that's not something we really know how to do. But some of y'all here tonight, y'all know how to grow on that level. Not to mention, if we're going to start another neighborhood farm, or 2 or 100 of them, we're going to need your help writing the overall story, as it were. So let me ask you, where do we grow from here?